But then we have this third category. You have that God exists and that nature is real. Okay, but which religion would that be? What type of God? And I think this is where we can steer and get to Christianity. So basically you have two types of God. What kind of God exists? You have deistic God, which is impersonal, doesn't care, uninvolved with the world. And so then you have the theistic God, which is the personal, involved, has some care for the events that go on in nature, in the world. The deistic God is said to have just created it and let it go. The theistic God, very much involved in the goings on in the world. And so which one would that be? Well, there's some basic arguments that say, okay, here's how we know God exists. Here are some ways that we can point to God, and what kind of God do they point to? You have the cosmological argument. Okay, the cosmological argument basically says the universe began, it had to have a beginner. It's formulated several different ways. A common one popular right now is called the Kalam. It says anything that begins to exist has to have a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause, and that cause is God. Okay, but what kind of God creates? What kind of God begins the universe? Look, it could be either one, a deistic God, a theistic God, either one, that works. Okay, 1-to-1, let's keep going. Then you have the fine-tuning argument. There's all kinds of constants and things that are set just the way they need to be in order for intelligent life to exist in this universe. Things like the distance of the Earth from the sun, the distance of the moon, the angle on our axis, the rate of rotation, the layout of the solar system and the gravity effects of the other planets, and the size of our sun, the amount of heat and radiation it gives off. Then you get into things like the speed of light, the strength of gravity, the strong and weak nuclear force, and it goes on and on and on. And there's all these things that are set exactly right for intelligent life to exist here on Earth, in this universe at all. And whenever you take all of that into account, you get three possibilities. It either necessarily occurs, it had to, or it arose by chance, or it was designed. Well, what would cause it to have to arise and be exactly in that tune the way it is? It can't be the laws of nature, because the laws of nature are affected by these fine-tuning elements. So it can't be necessity. What about chance? The probability argument of whether or not that could be is so astronomical that we don't even have a name for that number. One in, I don't know, something with an insane amount of zeros behind it. It's just highly, highly improbable, to the point of being irrational to think that that could be the answer. And so it comes up that the best possible explanation for the fine-tuning is a creator God, a designer. Okay, but what kind of God would that point to? It points to either one, a deistic God or a theistic God. Either one could fine-tune the universe for life, because he's creating, so he created it well. Okay, good. Well, now you have the moral argument. Okay? If you have a moral law, it requires a lawgiver. If there are objective morals that exist outside of mankind that universally apply to mankind across the board, no matter where you are, no matter when you are, those have to come from somewhere. Those laws transcend humanity, so they have to come from somewhere outside of humanity. The laws only come from a mind. Okay, evolution can't give you ought. It can't tell you what you should do. Okay, and so these laws, these moral duties, these moral obligations have to come from somewhere, so they come from a God. A law requires a lawgiver. What type of God, though? A deistic God? Would a deistic God be interested in the goings-on to the world? Remember, they're impersonal, they're detached, they created it all and just let it go and left us to ourselves. The moral argument would seem to imply a theistic God, not a deistic God. Then we have the issue of personal experience. Billions of people all over the world for thousands of years have experienced encounters of a supernatural sort. Answered prayers, miraculous healings, personal revelations, visions. Okay, So we have all these situations going on where people have a personal experience of God. Now think what you will of that, but the fact is that if people are experiencing God, is it a deistic God or a theistic God? Because deistic God doesn't care. Why would he be involved? The very idea of deism is that God is not involved. And so that goes to a theistic God. So it looks like now we are 2-4. But how do you get us to Christianity? How do you get us to the theistic God of the Bible? The resurrection of Jesus Christ. There are 4 historical facts that even most secular, non-Christian, even liberal Christian people were going to point to and say, yes, these 4 things happened. We know that Jesus was buried. He was buried in a tomb by Joseph of Arimathea. We know that that tomb was found empty a few days later. We know that people claim to have seen the resurrected Jesus Christ. We know that his disciples went to their death, refusing to deny that he had risen again. So we know that he died. We know the tomb was empty. We know what people claim. But the cinch pin on this is the fact that the disciples, who, if they had made this up, they'd go to some horrible, gruesome, painful deaths for something they know is a lie. You're talking about a dozen or so people. Someone would have known that this was false and would have caved. Someone would have broken. You're not going to have a conspiracy of the great a number and not have someone cave. It's just not going to happen. We're talking about crucifixions, boiled in oil, thrown off of buildings, beheaded, beaten, stoned. Someone is going to crack. Okay, you're not going to die for something you know to be false. You might die for something that you falsely believe is true, but if you know it's a lie, you're not going to give it up for that. And so that's what we see. But is that going to be a theistic God or a deistic God? Well, that's going to lead you not only to a theistic God, but to the God of the Bible, the God of Christianity, that Jesus Christ is who he claimed to be, God in the flesh. And so there we go. How do you get from this wide array of world religions and get down to Christianity? Now we have it.